In this DIY, we're taking a standard cooler box and we're converting it to something more attractive and more functional. Ideal for camping, entertainment, braais, parties, whatever. It's strong and sturdy so you can sit on it as well. Let's quickly go through all the materials that we're going to use. First of all, we've got some laminated pine timber. Now I've used a board length of 2.4 meters long by 380 wide. I've given all the measurements to the guys at Builders and they'll cut it all to those sizes for me. This was a Campmaster 12.5 litre cooler box available at Builders. If you use the same one, you can copy these exact same dimensions. Moving around, we're going to the rough coarse rope. I'm also using two 16mm electrical saddles. Now that's what I'm going to use to secure the rope to the actual side of the box. We've got a toggle and clasp, some back flap hinges, which is going to be used as hinges on the back to flip up the lid for opening and closing. On the underside, we're going to be using some rubber feet. I've got some wood filler, some wood glue, 20mm screws and some 35mm screws. And some wood stain, which I'm going to use to stain up the timber board, and also I'm going to seal that with some polyurethane wood sealer. As for the tools that I'm going to use, I've got a scraper, a pencil and a tape measure, a speed pilot which is going to drill my clearance holes and countersink the hole at the same time. I've got a cordless drill driver, an electric sander, and some additional clamps to help me hold all the box together whilst I assemble it. Let's move all this stuff out the way and get started with the DIY. Now the first thing you need to do when you get your timber back is mark every panel so you know exactly where each piece is going to go. We're going to start off with the bottom box section first. Now we've got this front section screwing onto the base section. Now it's important that when you are screwing these two together that you actually ensure that the screw goes down through into the middle of the timber. So the best way to do that is just take a existing piece and just mark where that piece of timber would be sitting. And likewise, we're going to do the exact same thing for the base piece, but it's going to be all the way around and we're going to screw up from the bottom into the edges of the front and the side pieces. We're now going to drill through with our speed pilot. Remember, make sure that you drill down into a scrap piece of board so you're not going to be damaging your table. The speed pilot will go all the way down and then penetrate through as it countersinks the top level of the surface. Okay, so the last piece drilled was my base section, and now we're going to start building our framework. So the first thing I need to do is put glue on the side pieces. Now what's handy is sometimes, if you've got the right amount of glue, it's tacky enough just to hold those two pieces together and then clamp the whole box section all together. It's going to make life much easier. Remember, when you are clamping the side, the back pieces and the front piece, to make sure that the countersunk holes are on the outside. And then you can just take a hammer and gently tap to make sure you get the right alignment of the side edges. I'm happy with that. I'm going to drive my screws all the way in and secure this box frame. And this is where I'm using the 35mm screw. Just line it up into the pre-drilled hole and screw that in tight. Okay, there's the box frame complete. We can take off our clamps and there's my box frame. Right, turn that upside down, pop on some wood glue for the base, clamp it down, just pop in all the screws. Okay, there is your box section complete. All we need to do now is obviously fill in these holes with some wood filler. That's those guys done. Put that aside to dry. And once that's dry, we're going to give it a good sand down. But before we do that, let's start manufacturing the lid section. The lid section is exactly the same as the box, it's just a little narrower. We're going to make it slightly differently. Instead of drilling through the top section or the bottom section, we are actually going to drill through the side pieces instead. Don't drill too close to the edge, otherwise it is going to break out and crack. Come in around about 30 to 40 millimeters and you'll be fine. All those pieces are countersunk. I'm now going to put wood glue on the underside, get them back into position and screw them down. Okay, my lid section is finished. Exactly the same process. Apply some wood filler to all the screw holes, and if you have got any sides which are misaligned, put some wood filler there as well, and then we can clean it up with the sander. I'm using an Orbital electric sander. It's a 120 grit. Once you've got that sanded down, it's now time to apply your wood stain. I'm using some Rust-Oleum Early American wood stain. That's going to give me this final finish. as you apply it so it sucks into the timber. Always remember, as you apply it, your last stroke must be in the same direction as the grain of the timber. Otherwise, you're going to get these crisscross lines and it's not going to look very natural at all. Carry on with the wood stain all the way around the box, and most importantly, go in on the inside too. Make sure you get every single cavity. I like to apply 2 coats, then followed once dry with 2 coats of the polyurethane wood sealer. Now that's really good stuff. It's hard wearing and it dries quickly, so you get to actually finish the DIY in a reasonable time. There's my box section complete. Now the first thing to do is let's start off by putting on the feet on the underside. But I don't like to put them right to the edge, otherwise you can see them. So we want to try and create that floating look of the box section. So just bring it in at about 35 to 40 mils. Now I'm using 20 millimeter screws. I've got a 19 millimeter board, but with the thickness of the foot, I should have enough clearance and not penetrate all the way through the bottom of the board. That's the rubber feet on nice and sturdy. We now need to look at putting on our side brackets for our rope section. We obviously want it in the center, so we're going to look at 275. Half of 275 is around about 137.5. So we know the center line is around about here. And we want to go down approximately 40 mils from the edge. As for the length of rope that I'm going to use, I'm using 1.1 meters. Now a handy tip when cutting rope is to prevent that end from fraying. There's no point cutting it and then winding your tape around the end to stop that. Rather do it beforehand and cut through the tape. There you go, perfect tight, and I haven't got to worry about all the pieces fraying out. Take your saddle. This is an electrical saddle, it's a 16 millimeter. We're going to use the 20 mil screws again. I like to just open that up a little bit. It just stops that from pulling out, makes it a little bit safer and secure. There's our handle. That looks good. We now need to attach our hinges at the back so we can secure our lid. This is where I've used the back flap hinges. If you line it up right to the top edge, just bring it down a little bit. I'm coming in approximately 40 millimeters, and that hinge lines up to the edge there. Okay, my hinges are on. We now need to put on our toggle and clasp on the front section. Make sure we line up to the middle. I think it was 137.5. Right, our box framework is complete now. There are a few changes, a few modifications you've got to do to your cooler box. First of all, we need to remove the lid from the hinge mechanism. So we're just going to take my knife and then just trim off these little lugs here. Okay, so now we've got a free cooler box, shall we say. Pop that into position. Okay, so next we need to do is mount our lid to this main lid. Right, moment of truth. Aha! Cool, fun and funky. It worked out very well. I'm more than happy with this. If you enjoyed this clip, enjoyed this DIY, like it, share it, leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to the Builders Fan YouTube channel, where there's a range of product reviews and DIYs like this for you to replicate and hopefully be inspired.